Many communities across the country are embarking on the sacred work of the search for missing children at all various stages of doing this. And at each event, we invite different community members or leaders to share knowledge about the search process, the barriers that they are experiencing, the strategies and practices they have put in place to support the search and recovery of unmarked burial and missing children. One part of this is putting in place strategies to support the well-being of survivors' families, community members, and all technicians leading this work on the ground. So we are very fortunate to have a panel of speakers that will share with us search and recovery processes and best practices. And yay, I got my stage back. Got my stage back. Now we'd like to call up our panelists, Eleanor Skeed, Chief Derek Nepanak, and Sherry Chisholm. And now sharing best practices is one of the ways that we are going to get through this. We are going to heal, and we are going to bring our loved ones home. And it's not only, it's so important, it's imperative. And we will bring them home, whether it's, you know, we do it and we take our time with it, or we can expedite this. And we can rely on the young people like Ivan Foote Memorial Dancers to get us through those difficult times, and rely on our traditional music, our traditional ways of being and living and thinking. And that will help us get through this. Yeah. Eleanor, it's so wonderful to see you. Chief Derek and Sherry.
Bonjour, Gakinawaya, Ogimao Nagok, Dishnikas, Pikon Kotoke, Namendo Tem, Washashkaniga Ming Don Jiba, Nitmami Gwetchagwe, Gagibak Namat, Oegagia Bachitoat, Te Iganan, Pagadan, Geowea Kicha Ag. Gagi bakinigeat, Owenongum, Gibaba, Undane among Bimatizin, Geanin in a kei, Nigan Geje, Minub Matiziat, Kinichans Senanik, Go Senanik, Kitan Kobitag Nenanik. My name is Eleanor Skeed, and I am from Wajashkanigam First Nation, Rat Portage. It's 3 kilometers south of Kenora. I attended St. Mary's Indian Residential School, and I'm also the facilitator for our Unmarked Graves project, and we've called it Gatagoging. Gatagoging is the term that we use for unmarked graves. So the background of our project, St. Mary's Indian Residential School in Kenora operated between 1897 and 1972 right on Wajashkanigam land. Over 6,114 children attended St. Mary's from 16 different Treaty 3 communities. Archival records state that at least 36 children died while the school was in operation. Based on conversations with survivors and their testimonies, the true number is believed to be significantly higher. I know when I went to St. Mary's, my parents told me where not to go, where not to play. There were stories handed down on where children were buried without even a proper ceremony. And those are part of our investigations. Oh. So you see the white building right on to, I guess it would be your right. That white building is still standing, and that was the school block. Our process, after the discovery of 215 graves at Kamloops, Chief Skeed, I don't know if he's back yet, Chief Skeed, oh there he is, our chief from Wajash. He halted all development projects that were in progress to hold space for the survivors in our community. With funding secured, the Gatagoging initiative was launched. It was led by the nations. Approximately 52 survivors are still alive living in our community. The 3-year project includes many forms of research, archival, archaeological, including GPR, and oral history sharing and engagement. We have regular meetings with survivors. We've done strategic planning for the future, and we conduct ceremonies at every meeting. We hold our meetings right on site. Where this particular building was an old rink, and that's my granddaughter Julia Landon. And we have a number of drums that rotate. The main goals of the project are to bring together customary Anishinaabe protocols and Western protocols in seeking and uncovering the truth. To continue the journey of individual, family, and community healing. To seek and gain closure for families of missing children. Protect future generations and make recommendations for actions so this does not happen again. The principles of the process. There are 4 guiding principles that shape the project. The first one is wewene, interpreted for our group as to take our time. Because we're taught that any decisions we make today can affect future generations, for many generations. Bebe ka, doing it right. When those that understand that word, is a real concept. It's about consequences to the decisions that are being made, and it must be done right. This is a sacred spiritual process, and it needs to be done right. We have bizindan. Listen carefully. Everyone will be heard, and hear others. Geguk tachken means don't be afraid. Those of us that went to residential schools have felt the oppression of those institutions that took away your voice, your identity. We encourage our survivors to speak up. I say that a lot when I'm facilitating. Stand up, speak up. This is Stanley Skeed, the late Alex Skeed, who did a lot of work for our First Nations in Canada, and his son carries on the work. And I believe that's his pipe. We've developed our own protocols, our own laws. This is called jurisdiction and action. We not only have inherent jurisdiction, we also have inherent responsibility. We have a search and findings protocol. There is one survivor that's trained to monitor at this point, the GPR process. He reports to the chief and council. We do not exhume. In our territory, in our Wajashkuniigam Nation, we will not exhume. And it's very clear, left for generations to come, not to do that. We have an archives protocol There are challenges and delays to repatriating student records, and we need data sovereignty. But what does data sovereignty mean? What does it mean? We need to identify that in Wajashkanigam. Because we're having a lot of problems because we can't fit what they want. That's why we're having problems. We need to say what data sovereignty is. We have a drum protocol, and these are all our traditional drums in our community. And they do a rotation, and every single engagement, there's a drum there, and we just follow that rotation. We've developed a healing protocol, and it assesses current healing resources and charts the healing pathway forward. It emphasizes connection to land and language as primary healing needs. Our land, it holds our healing. It holds our healing systems, and they're actually sacred sites. My mother taught me that in every single reserve, we all have a sacred site. And I know in Treaty 3 that some of those protocols are still followed. I know in one reserve, you don't enter that reserve until you put tobacco on that tree. And you tell that tree what your business is in their territory. We have a working together protocol, and it establishes harmonized pathway for survivors, initiative to be carried out concurrently with other Wajashkanigam initiative. We have external communications protocol, and it's a process for directing inquiries from other communities and individuals. It protects the sacred process of Gatagoging. These protocols are developed from a collective memory. And when you understand our protocols, you see how customary law is weaved into those protocols. But the process of protocol development itself is data sovereignty. This is another, an elder, Sally Skeed. Her father was Clifford Skeed. And the women too bring their hand drums and play a big part in having the healing songs for our survivors. And the survivors ask that those drums be there. The actions that we've taken so far, we do have, like I said, the regular ceremonies. Every session is open with the big drums, and there has been hand drums that have come in. We have our pipes. We smudge when it's needed during the meetings. We always burn a plate, a spirit dish. That was one thing that one woman, one of the survivors brought to our attention. The children were hungry, the ones that are left on our site that didn't have the opportunity to have proper ceremonies and to make it home. We did a project launch ceremony, and that was to make sure that we make sure that we will be guided and supported by our spirit beings that look after us and the Creator. We did a before the search ceremony, making sure that we're doing things in a respectful way. All of this stuff is being recorded and documented for future generations. We did a family tree, and that exercise was helpful in determining where might have there been maybe a missing family member that didn't come home. We've had mapping, a walk to discover, ground truthing. The walk to discover, mostly the older survivors that attend our meetings were led that walk. Were they seen, or where they were participants of just burying children, of helping to bury the children? We finally had our funeral and our funeral ceremony, and the elder wanted a star blanket, and we got teachings about our home place in the stars, And that star blanket hangs at our meeting place. A reminder of that, of the children. They never made it home, but they were still part of our, they're still part of our community, those children that never made it home. The stories, the interviews with the survivors, those are, to me, they're like their life, those stories are life energy. Minigoy Zewin. Those life experiences are passed on to the next generation so that, you know, they will know what genocide looks like. They'll know what oppression looks like. And they'll know how to be different. This is our star blanket. It was made by Mary Jane Kelly. And the elder just gave us a couple of days' notice that bring a star blanket to honor the children. And she happened to have one on the ready. So this one, it's a really beautiful blanket that hangs there. What's missing is the elder on your left, Joe Seymour, made a nice varnished pole to hang the blanket on. His wife passed away quite a number of years ago, maybe over 20 years ago. And he kept these leather strings in her memory, and he gave them to us to use for that blanket, to tie that blanket up and hang it on the pole. So looking to the future, our successes, we have collective healing underway. They're starting to speak up now. Our relationships in the community are getting better. We're building that sense of community. And by building that sense of community, we're reclaiming those sacred sites and how we use these sites and how we're going to teach the future to use those sites as a healing pathway. There's demonstrated resilience of elders. They have the ability to tell their stories. Even one of the ceremonies we had, Wijandim, that's an old ceremony that we haven't done that in Rat Portage for a long, long time, and you pass gifts back and forth, and we stand in a circle and we make sure everybody has a gift. That was a really beautiful strengthening ceremony, strengthen relationships. We know that we need to decolonize, rewire, reprogram our brains and our hearts. Take back our laws and our ways of doing things. We've had involvement of youth. How do they see things today? What do they understand? Let them define intergenerational trauma. That's one thing I want our youth to do in Rat Portage. Don't go and take somebody else's definition and say, this is what it is. And you heard Will is my son, Will Landon. You heard him speak today. Always tell him, if you have something to say, speak up. The implementation of our protocols, exercising the implementation of our laws, it's our resource. It's something that our future generations are going to learn from. It's going to set their minds, their future. We do have the challenges. The healing needs are not really being met. We have the mental health workers, we have the psychologists. This is not a put down, but we need to develop those relationships before people can really open up some of the hurt that's being carried. Again, that intergenerational trauma, making our young people understand, you do carry intergenerational trauma, but you have the strengths of your ancestors. And how do you awaken that? I've talked about, in my family, my kids and my grandkids too, that the laws that we were given, the 7 sacred laws. And how do you use them as a tool to healing? And in some cases, when we've really hit a low point, when my boys have hit a low point, how do you use those 7 grandfather teachings as weapons against some of the darkest times you've had to face? And those are the laws we were given to survive. And we have to make sure our youth know how to use them, how to make them relevant. We have blocks in accessing our language and the land. I think it's even still part of this report that, it's hard to even do research on private ownership or provincial crown land, to have access to that. Because we know, we've heard stories that there could potentially be unmarked graves on private land. Further, decolonizing the education is still needed. It's hard to fight overwhelming assimilative environment, whether it be education, TVs, laptops, and how do we turn those same things around to educate our kids. Also in governments and institutions, I heard today, is it decolonizing or are we up against systemic racism? Or both, probably. Displaced anger in community relationships. We in our community is really small, and probably a lot of other communities here. And you see it come out even in election time. Families fighting each other, that happens. But all that, it stems from those genocidal policies from the federal government, designed to make us fight. And then we carry that anger, and we carry that anger against each other. Then, of course, there's a re-traumatization. It seems like every meeting, at least one person will break down in our group, and we need to help each other. Our elders are aging. Those stories are sacred. Those life experiences are about giving life to the next generation so that they know how to deal with things. And again, that limited data sovereignty. It's not only about accessibility. It's reclaiming jurisdiction and inherent responsibility. Those stories are our knowledge. Those experiences were given to us for a reason. And we need to do something about it for the next generation. This is a food we put out. This is not the spirit dishes that were burnt, but we do put out food too, just on the land for the spirit beings, and we do the burning ceremony. Looking to the future, healing looks like access to customary traditional lands and reclaiming our sacred relationships and sacred sites. A deeper integration of language and more speakers. Anishinaabemowin was given to us. That Anishinaabemowin is a spirit herself. She gives us the ability to shape how we look at the world, our perspectives every day. Understanding our displaced anger to heal, smoothing existing tensions between individuals and families, in finding a way for increased data sovereignty, continue decolonizing in governments, institutions, and everywhere, and understanding that beneath that is systemic racism. More accessible process for applying, receiving, and reporting on funding. Mi'iminik, miigwech.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. I'd like to invite Chief Derek Nibenak to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to acknowledge that we're here on Treaty 1 territory. I want to acknowledge the drums, the prayers, and the pipes that were brought out to start this gathering in the right way. Good afternoon, elders, community leaders, all the visitors to the Treaty 1 territory, and all my friends and relatives who are here today to participate in this critically important discussion. Miigwech to the Special Interlocutor's Office and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in organizing this event and asking for our participation as a community currently engaged in our search for unmarked graves and burials around the site of our former residential school. My name is Derek Nepanak. I'm chief of the Minagosibi Anishinaabe. We're a community of approximately 4,300 members situated on the western shore of Lake Winnipeg-Osis in what today is called West Central Manitoba. We're a Treaty 4 and a Treaty 2 community, and we're one of a number of communities in what's now called Manitoba to share a difficult and dark recent history in our dealings with the residential school policies of settler colonial governments. As a community leader, I'm the first generation of my family in the past 100 years not to go to residential school. I'm a sun dancer, and I walk through my life teaching my children about the importance of our language, our ceremonies, and our Anishinaabe way of life. I'm still trying to remember my own fluency in our language as I'd spent a lot of years away from home. I want to acknowledge that we have survivors of the Pine Creek Residential School and Day School in attendance today, as well as members of our Leadership Council, Councillor Angela McKay, Councillor Cindy McKay, Councillor Dawn Chartrand, and Councillor Harley Chartrand. Also attending today are our Community Wellness Coordinator Brenda Catchaway and our Project Manager Cheryl Moosetail and her family supports. I acknowledge my colleagues in this work because each of us commits to carry our share of the difficult tasks of this work, and we do our best to support one another no matter how difficult the pathway has become. We also recognize that the leaders in our community go well beyond the chief and council. We have spiritual leaders, fire keepers, ceremony leaders, grandmothers and grandfathers, and survivors who are the true leaders of this process. And without their participation and committed effort to this work, there would be no story to share with you today. Our story is a difficult one, and we have only proceeded this far because we stand together and we commit to hold each other up. I also want to acknowledge the role of the Catholic Church in this process. We have tried to create safe spaces for everyone, and this means that we have included Father Napoleon from the church in our engagement sessions, and we've met with the Archdiocese of Winnipeg to discuss our ground-penetrating radar findings and to ask him to give us our land back. We are not trying to shame the church, nor are we trying to shame those who follow the teachings of the Catholic Church. We encourage people to pray in the way they know how, and we do our best to create spaces for our members who follow their religious teachings. In July 2021, the Minagosibi Anishinaabe continued our process of reclaiming our history and finding the pathway to the truth about what happened to our children and families in the early days of our colonization in the residential school system. Like so many other communities across Canada who became aware of 215 unmarked burials in Kamloops, we had always been aware of a dark residential school history in our own community. As a community, we undertook to walk this difficult path together so that the grandchildren of our grandchildren would know that their ancestors were strong and resilient people who survived the very worst times of the genocidal policies of colonization. You'll notice that there's a film crew that's accompanied our delegation from Pine Creek. We're capturing these moments in time so that we can create a documentary which we will share to the world so that our future generations will know what we did in this time that we had to do it. In our search of our residential school and the church grounds to date, we have identified 71 reflections, of which 14 have been identified under the basement of the Catholic Church. The project has become known as Gego Mawekak, which means don't cry in our Anishinaabemowin language. Our elders told us early in the discussion that they were always told by the nuns and priests running the school that they were not allowed to express emotion, that they were not allowed to cry. This recurring message became a theme of the historical times, so we decided to entrench the message so that future generations will never forget what we have survived. We wanted to refer to the project in our own language because this project is about repatriation, and it's about reclaiming our language, our culture, and our unique connection to our ancestral lands. In this way, we hope to promote the healing of self, our families, and our community, ensuring that our pathway to truth balances difficult discoveries with opportunities for healing is a major aspect of this initiative. The residential school at Pine Creek was built as part of the emerging state of Canada's civilization effort of the Anishinaabe people in our ancestral lands. It was envisioned that they could civilize us if they took our children away from us. And taking children away from the family nest not only created isolation, but also disconnection from the sacred transfer of our societal norms, our customs, our language, and perhaps most importantly, our kinship connections. This system of isolation and disconnection led to great harms, including the death of a significant number of children in our community. The harms of the school created great trauma that transcended the time and place that it occurred. And today, the legacy of the school impacts our families through unresolved trauma, which lives in the genetic memory of our people. With intergenerational trauma impacting all of our families and our community, it's been imperative that we do our best to mitigate harm as much as we can, but also not to deny or avoid the difficult discussions that need to happen within the safety of our ceremony. And how do we do this? Well, we're reclaiming our cultural practices as part of our healing and wellness. We started with elder engagement. Determining the parameters of our project was not a political process. It was a community process. This required us to consult the surviving elders in our community and beyond on the appropriate pathway to finding our truth. Most of the participating elders are from our community of Minagosibi, but also we've had elders from other Anishinaabe communities, including Skownan, Wayway-Sakapo, and beyond, attend our meetings in the community. Brenda Ketchway and Cheryl have also gone out to other communities to make presentations about what we found to this point based on the history of those communities and their participation in our school. Our approach to engaging our elders meant that we would be non-invasive, yet open and inviting to community members who wish to be involved in the discussion. This has drawn a wide variance of discussion, and some participants are there to learn, others are there to contribute their story to our growing understanding of what happened in our community during those difficult times. We always have the pipe and water ceremony, and the drums are always present. Each engagement, ground search, and community update has always involved these ceremonies. The ceremonies set the stage for respectful discussion and ensures the safety of everyone involved. Not everyone participates in the ceremony, but all who are present have been respectful. Some have grown to want to learn more about the ceremonies and have become more involved as the engagements have continued. There's also a consistent presence of the sacred fire. During the initial discussions and planning, we also committed to ensure that a 4-day sacred fire would be lit at the start of each round of ground searches. This sacred fire is out of respect for the lost children who did not return home to their families. Our fire keepers are committed to the fire and stay awake through the night while it burns just feet away from the foundations of the old residential school. The sacred fire has created opportunities for our community members to come to the fire and to share their thoughts and their feelings on the process. And of course, like other Anishinaabe communities, we always feast. The Anishinaabe way of bringing people together involves feasting. We don't always need a reason to feast together, but in this case, if we're going to ask people to come to discuss our difficult history, we have always committed to ensuring people have a chance to break bread together and share in our feast food. When it's been possible, we've tried to incorporate our traditional foods into the feast. We rely on local cooks who have long-standing family recipes to share with the community. We harvest our moose from the Duck Mountain, and we share it amongst the community. There's always mental health supports available on site and provided throughout every meeting, engagement, and ground search update. This includes ensuring traditional helpers are on site during all engagement exercises, as well as trained professionals in mental health and crisis intervention. Our traditional helpers ensure that the traditional medicines are on hand and available for everyone. Outside of the very direct engagement process, we as a leadership council have also committed to ensuring supports available during the project and outside. We invested locally in developing other formal supports for community healing. In the past year, we purchased the Rising Sun Healing Lodge, which is now in plans for becoming an addictions treatment center. At the lodge, we have community sweat lodge ceremonies for anyone who wants to participate. This is an ongoing process, and our sweats are posted for public participation. Our council even offers rides to the lodges for people who don't have their own transportation but would still like to participate. With all that said, trauma manifests in various ways, and we always knew that this would be a difficult path. We've tried to be safe and inclusive, but one evening in August of this past summer, we woke to find that someone had set fire to our new community family resource center. The center was built near the site of our old residential school and was the site for all of our community engagement sessions and project updates on the ground search. The timing of the fire was a couple days following our most recent meeting on the findings of the reflections under the church and following our announcement that we were going to seek the assistance of the RCMP in investigating the findings under the church. After a brief investigation by the fire commissioner, it was found that someone had used an accelerant to light the fire on the newly constructed deck on the east side of our brand new building. The Family Resource Center was a $1.3 million investment by our community and identified as a place to develop programming for families and to help bring our children home and keep our children home. The investigation into this fire is ongoing, and we've offered a $10,000 reward to any information leading to the arrest and conviction for this deliberately set fire. Despite the challenges we have faced as the Miigwech Anishinaabe people, we remain strong and we remain committed to this process. We remain committed to helping bring the truth forward so that our families can heal from what we have survived in our genocide. We will help other communities when requested in their searches, and we will share our experience as there are great lessons to be learned as we continue to seek our truth. And I wanted to share a quote from one of my late elders who told me very early on in his trainings towards my leadership. He reminded me that anger grows from an original hurt or sadness. If you don't address that original hurt, that anger can grow into hatred. And sometimes that hatred turns into acts of wickedness to self or outward acts of violence to your family, your neighbor, and community. I've been wary of this all throughout the process, recognizing that if we're not addressing the trauma that was created and that we still hold on to, then this project really isn't going to accomplish the outcomes that we want it to. We will continue the process, and we will continue to work on finding the truth and sharing the truth as it happens. As difficult as it has been for us as a community, the new healing that we're going through and now redesigning our Family Resource Center and rebuilding it, which is something we've committed to, is all part of our growth and our process towards healing. Sharing that truth with the world at the right time so that our future generations can be strong. That's what this initiative has always been about. At all times being respectful of those who have survived, those who continue to practice the culture and bring it back home. As dark and difficult as some of these stories are, there's also a beauty to it. The beautiful way of the Anishinaabe is now once again revealing itself, and it's making strong people once again. Miigwech for hearing me out.
Thank you, Chief Nipnak. I'd like to invite Sherry Chisholm to the podium, and she is from the Blue Quills Indian Residential School, so welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to start my presentation the way we do our work at Blue Quills, in ceremony, acknowledging creation and our spirit helpers, and with song. I'd like to invite my colleagues, if they feel comfortable, to come and help me with this song, the healing song. Kitam skat no kakio, laro te, me we no tai haya yan. Go no kumpe susqueo. I give thanks to the welcome to your land, to welcoming us to your lands, Treaty 1 and Métis territory. We give honor to your ancestors, to the sacred fire that's burning outside. I had the opportunity to make an offering to that fire this morning. To the kulak, to the pipe, to the prayers. We also acknowledge the survivors and their families, our elders, our leaders, the singers and the fire keepers. We acknowledge the ones who never made it home, and the ones who they left behind, and the ones who went home wounded. Also want to acknowledge the staff who worked so hard to bring us together in this gathering, in this very nice space. For me, the drum yesterday went straight to the heart. And it's our hearts that need that healing. And the memorial cloth. Even though I've been involved in this work for some time, I was still overcome and I wept. And my mind was screaming, how could this ever have happened? It became real in a new way. And I believe that's what will happen for all of us as we continue this work for the next generations. Every day it will become real in a new way, and we will have to find our way to work through that. Can we get the slideshow stuff? There we go. Yeah. So Blue Quills Indian Residential School is actually a history in 3 places. There was originally a school at the Lac La Biche Mission. It was moved to Saddle Lake Cree Nation, and then it was moved to its current site, which is just west of the town of St. Paul. All of this in Treaty 6 territory. And now that site is a university owned and governed by 7 First Nations. So on behalf of the nations, the board, the staff, the students, the university has undertaken this sacred work in identifying unmarked burial sites. I'd like to also acknowledge the leadership and elders from Saddle Lake Cree Nation who are here, as well as any elders, leaders, survivors from the other nations in our territory. And thank you for your support. Push the green button. So our people have been talking to us for years about deaths, unexplained deaths, and children who didn't go home from Blue Quills. So we knew when we heard the announcement from Tk'emlúps last spring that we would be undertaking this work at Blue Quills. and to work with all of the nations in our territory who sent children there. With other nations, we know that there are children who came from as far away as British Columbia and in southern Alberta and Siksika and Kainai territory. And so we started this work, forgetting which button to push, in ceremony. And so last spring, in May 2021, when we first heard this news, we started a sacred fire that burned for 4 days. Our fire keepers took care of it 24 hours a day. People came to make offerings, to share song and memories, to just be with one another, to feel that healing. We were all probably in a state of shock at that time, not knowing which way things were going to go. But that fire helped us get grounded and remember who we are and what we do and why we do it. And so when we started the first phase of our ground search this year, we knew that we would stay in ceremony throughout. We started with a spiritual fire. We had pipe ceremonies, songs, and arts throughout because one of our elders told us, art is healing for the spirit. And so each day the pipe was lifted in the first 4 days by a survivor, someone who had been at Blue Quills as a child. And one of them said, I never imagined as a child when I was in that school that I would be sitting in a teepee in front of that building lifting my pipe. And it became part of his healing and his journey. I also want to acknowledge that there are members of the search team who are here. We engaged with the University of Alberta under the leadership of Dr. Keisha Supernat, and they came to ceremony every morning before they started their search work. They came into pipe ceremony with us. And every afternoon at the end of the day of searching, they and their equipment came in for a very special blessing ceremony to help them let go of whatever they had encountered on those grounds. There they are, and there they are. So throughout this process, they worked with our team and our visitors, and people had a chance to go and actually operate the equipment or see what was happening with the equipment and have an explanation about what all those squiggly lines might mean. And now, of course, the data's back with the team, and they're trying to interpret those squiggly lines and make some nice pictures for us. And perhaps one of the most beautiful things that happened that week is that there was a steady presence all day long around the fire. People gathering, survivors, their families, sharing memories. And we had grief and loss educators there who also are ceremonial people. And so all of the grief and loss support happened in ceremony. And it was like being in ceremony all day long. And there was a real sense of peace and comfort, even though we were doing very difficult work that was triggering trauma for everybody. And I want to just share a story of what one of our knowledge keepers told us in May the year before when we were lighting our sacred fire. And he said, the children came to me and they said, Musum, we're so grateful for all of the ceremony that you do and all of the feasts that you make for us. But you know what we miss the most? We miss our toys. We never got to take our toys with us. And so he invited us to bring toys as an offering. And at the end of that 4-day fire, those toys were taken out to the bush, to the trees, where they played, which was their safe space. And those toys were offered to them. And so throughout those 5 days, as people gathered around the fire, there was laughter, there were tears, there were memories shared, there were hugs, there was smudging all day long. But also, it was healing for the families that came to be reconnected in a way that they hadn't been before, through ceremony on the grounds in front of an old Indian residential school. And of course, we had the mental wellness support workers there in addition to the cultural support workers. After our first pipe ceremony on the first day, we also had jingle dress dancers, a whole team of them, including a young one. And we have a healing garden out in front of the university now. It's made in 4 quadrants, and it has our medicines growing in there, as well as our foods, our berries, our fruit trees that we use for ceremony. And we've got a beautiful sculpture in there and a place where people can go and make offerings. And so the jingle dress dancers danced around that healing garden to bring healing to the people. And it was a beautiful sight to witness. We also had an opportunity for people to share their memories. So there was one of the teepees that was devoted to a private space, so people could go. We had mental health support workers, social workers, interviewers there who very gently could invite people into sharing those memories. And they stayed in there sometimes for hours because they needed that opportunity to bring out what they'd been carrying themselves for so long and to be able to share that with others. And this is one of my favorite pictures. 3 survivors sitting around that fire and sharing the memories. And even though there's traumatic memories, there were also some humorous memories. They were talking about all the trouble that they got in as little boys and the way that they would tease each other. And they still tease each other that way today. And so it helps them laugh. And just like the laughter therapy that we did in lunchtime, right? That laughter is part of the healing journey. We also, it happened that week there was a full moon. And there was a young man who's on his own healing journey who came and volunteered with us for the whole week. And he invited participants on a full moon walk and run, because there's some of us that just won't run, right? But it started in the evening, just as the moon was coming up, with smudging and ceremony and a talking circle, a sharing circle, offerings of tobacco, and talking about how movement is healing. Getting our physical bodies moving is part of our healing process. And so they took a journey out from the old school to our ceremonial grounds and back around the campus there. And so we're very fortunate that there's so many people who came forward to share their gifts, including the gifts in the arts. And a week later, we hosted a healing gathering to support people, survivors and their families, to come and engage in various kinds of arts as healing activities. So we had services like Reiki and massage and all kinds of other energy medicines, Indigenous wellness supports, making medicine bags, ribbon skirt making and healing through song. And I think the list goes on, but there were quite a few activities that happened there. And so that will continue to be the pattern as we go into various phases of our ground search, is to continue to make people feel welcome. But we'll also take this work into our communities, because we know that there are survivors who are not comfortable coming to Blue Quills. The memories that they carry are just too painful. And so we will go to them and make it available to them. Make these healing activities available to them off the grounds of Blue Quills, so that everybody is included in this. Just a couple of shots of happy people engaging in healing. And so, as I said, Blue Quills is now a university owned and governed by 7 nations in Treaty 6. I also want to acknowledge a Timuano Paspeo Society from Saddle Lake, who is also doing this work on behalf of the survivors of Blue Quills Indian Residential School. Residential schools took our children away. They took them away from our ceremonies, our families, our songs, our languages, and told them that they were evil and worthless. They separated us from ceremony. And so now we see our path forward as being through ceremony, language, and family. So as we do this work, we need to think about how we heal ourselves into the future. Like the sacred fire that burns here, like the kulik, let's be the light that doesn't go out, that we share from home to home, from nation to nation. We need our land, our languages, our ceremonies, our relationships. This is how we address trauma. One of our elders once said, our ceremonies That's our psychology. So we must be the ones who carry this gift so that our future generations, or that our ancestors left beside the trail, so that our seventh generation, the great-grandchildren of our great-grandchildren, will have something to carry. And they will know who Creator sent them here to be. And so while this work has the potential to hurt us again, enough to tear us apart, it can also be the opportunity to bring ourselves together, to heal together through ceremony, dialogue, kindness, patience, and respect. Let's be here with and for each other. Kita tamihinawao, sinichu masi. Hai hai.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you, Chief Nipanak. Before you leave the stage, we have some gifts for you. So I'll just, looks like Stephanie will be bringing them up to you. Again, thank you very much. Let's give them a hand of applause, please.